The Fed15 podcast is presented by Serving Those Who Serve, a financial planning practice serving federal government employees and retirees all over the country. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be taken as financial advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. The opinions expressed by our hosts are their own and do not reflect the views, policies, or position of either Raymond James or Serving Those Who Serve. Securities are offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Inc. Serving Those Who Serve is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services, Inc.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Fed15 podcast, presented by Serving Those Who Serve. Each week, we'll discuss the latest news and info that feds need to know in 15 minutes-ish or less. So whether you're a seasoned federal employee or just starting out in your career, Fed15 has got you covered. Grab your coffee, kick back, and we'll tell you what you need to know but might have missed. We're your hosts, Chelsea English and Dan Sipe.
How you doing, Chelsea?
Doing great. How are you, Dan?
I'm living the dream. It's Olympic time. Yeah, once every 4 years, we get to talk like we know about sports that we haven't seen in a long time.
That's so true. I think, there's a certain irony to watching the Olympics, from our living rooms on our couch. And I feel like it starts out, the Olympics, you're like, wow, these people have dedicated their all for the last 4 years, in this case, 3 years. And then, after a few days, you're like, oh, that looks sloppy. Oh, I can't believe they missed that.
Exactly. And the second half is always, track and field's kind of the dominant, but you and I were talking before the broadcast, some of the things that you noticed in artistic swimming and that caught your eye.
Yeah, I can't say I know much about artistic or synchronized swimming, but I do have some experience playing water polo in high school. And so watching the acrobatic round of artistic swimming and seeing what those swimmers are able to do, treading water and hoisting these other, athletes into the air, the amount of strength that takes, it was unbelievable. It was so cool to watch and different, something I wasn't expecting to see and really enjoyed watching.
Yeah. And okay, let's get real. Okay. Water polo is a swimming sport with an objective of putting a ball in the goal with a fight attached.
That's absolutely true. You couldn't be more right there.
Because I was watching that and it's like, okay, I never would have been able to do this sport.
Yeah, I wasn't in it for very long. I'll tell you that. I gave it my best shot in high school, but it was not a long-term endeavor of mine.
Sure.
But let's talk track and field, because I know that's what you're itching to talk about.
Well, especially the field side, because, here's the thing, even at the Olympics, the throwers get this much of the coverage, and we're on a banner year for the U.S. So we had Brian Krause and Joe Kovacs go gold and silver in shot put, just like they did back in Tokyo. So they've been 1-2 for 3 consecutive Olympics, which is just extraordinary.
Wow.
And Joe coming up with that final throw in insanely bad conditions.
Oh, yeah.
The ring was a skating rink. So to pull that was amazing. And then Annette Ejikenokwe got silver in hammer, which is a place where we generally don't medal, so women's hammer. Val Allman doubled and repeated as gold medalist in discus. We're heading into women's shot put today. We've got Raven Saunders and Jada Ross in there. Raven was silver medalist in Tokyo and is only 29, so she's got a lot of good stuff in front of her. So we're pumped. I'll be working my day job, so I'll have to watch the recording later.
I know. It is amazing with technology that we are able to see the recordings after work. I mean, I remember there was so much of the Olympics that I used to miss. It's in different parts of the world and we didn't have recordings. And so, well, I didn't catch that. Maybe you could see, highlight reels on the news, but to be able to go back and watch the entire event, it's great.
Yeah, it's a great reason to have Peacock.
Yes. Did you catch any of the, I know you said you're more of a field watcher, but did you catch any of the big races?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. The men's 1500, that one really stands out to me. Cole Hawker, I mean, beating his PR.
That was supposed to be a 2-man race, but they forgot.
Unbelievable. It was just incredible. And Noah Lyles, his 100-meter dash performance was amazing. And then the fact that he won bronze in the 200 meters with COVID, I mean, the third fastest runner in the world at that event, and he was down with COVID. I mean, it's just what these athletes are doing is not only entertaining and exceptional to watch, but it's inspiring, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. That's one click off the superhero, with that. Well, I can hear the keyboards clacking going, hey, you guys going to talk about Fed stuff? I could definitely do all 15 minutes just on the Olympics, but we do have to take care of our Feds whom we love. So I'm going to be talking about something that gets mixed up all the time. And that is FERS Deferred versus Postponed retirement. Okay. So we've got a great article in there that summarizes it very well. So we're kind of amplifying it. So FERS is the Federal Employee Retirement System. There are two systems out there, CSRS, which is technically the older system, phased out in the 80s. And right now there's still 44,000 CSRS employees. That's why we still do CSRS webinars, and we'll continue to do them as long as you guys are around and attending. But FERS, by far the dominant plan out there, and represents a pension structure, just as CSRS had. And, its eligibility is you have a couple of different thresholds. With 5 years of service, you can retire with a pension at age 62. With 20 years of service, you retire at age 60. And with 30 years of service, you can generally retire as early as 57. So kind of a sliding schedule there. But then we have deferred and postponed retirement. And, why might we have those things? Well, most commonly, a deferred retirement occurs when somebody they work a certain length of time in federal service and they leave and they don't come back. So if they've worked at least 5 years, they're going to be eligible for a pension at 62. And so they have the ability to come back and do that. There are pros and cons associated with a deferred retirement. You do have the ability to pick up that pension later, but one of the disadvantages is that you lose your eligibility for federal insurance benefits forever. So if you come back and just claim the pension without returning to federal service, you won't be able to carry FEHB into retirement. Conversely, postponed, and this is the one that people always mix up, is it deferred, is it postponed? Postponed means that you're actually able to retire, but the age that you're considering it, you might have a reduction from what your full annuity amount is. So you want to retire and just wait to claim your annuity until age 62 to avoid those reductions. Again, pros and cons. You can avoid all of those penalties, and you also have the opportunity to re-enroll in those federal insurance benefits. Key differences between the two. Deferred retirement, you would need to be in service at least 5 years. So once you've done 5 years, if you leave federal service, and I hope none of you do, but if you do, write it down the day you go out. Don't forget, I have a pension, and I need to come back and claim that at 62. The other big distinction is those FEHB health benefits. If you're deferred, meaning you just left and you weren't eligible to retire, you're not going to be able to get them back. You would have to come back into federal service, and you have to make sure that you had the benefits for at least 5 years and then retire. The other big distinction is when you come back on a deferred versus a postponed, you won't really be able to leave a survivor benefit. With postponed, under some circumstances, you can leave a survivor benefit. I'm not going to dive into that right now. Hit us up at askusstws@stwserve.com. We can walk you through that. But in conclusion, you really want to understand the difference between these two. And again, if you have at least 5 years of federal service and you are choosing not to continue your career, write it down everywhere so you won't forget it. You've got a pension that you should come back and claim at 62. So that's it for me. So Chelsea, you have some really interesting stuff. This was one of our best read articles of the last year or more. The current state of remote work. Tell us about it.
Oh, yeah. Like you mentioned, Dan, there's been a lot of buzz lately about remote work for feds, with some new legislation looking to shake things up. People are really concerned about how this is going to impact their work-life balance as well as job satisfaction. So before COVID-19 hit, remote work for federal employees was pretty limited. But then when the pandemic happened, telework policies had to expand quickly to keep things running and also keep people safe. So we fast forward to August 2023, last year, about a year ago, President Biden pushed for federal workers to head back to the office by the fall. Some agencies like the VA and the DoD went back earlier than that, but there are still others that are catching up. So almost a year later, we're seeing two big pieces of legislation in Congress that could completely change the future of remote work for feds. One bill wants to expand it for more flexibility and work-life balance, while the other wants to end it. So first up, we've got the Telework Reform Act. This bill aims to formalize and improve remote telework policies for federal employees. It defines telework as needing to be in the office at least twice per pay period, while remote work would rarely require on-site presence. The bill also calls for annual renewal of these work agreements to account for changes in job duties, performance, or agency needs. Plus, it allows agencies to hire spouses of military and law enforcement officers for remote roles outside of the usual competitive hiring process. And, as a military spouse myself, I've benefited from remote work for over 6 years now. Unfortunately, and, I looked this statistic up to verify before this podcast because I thought it was interesting and important to highlight. Military spouses have faced an unemployment rate of 22% over the last decade, making it one of the highest unemployed demographics in the U.S. This really impacts the ability to secure employer-sponsored retirement benefits and build long-term financial futures. So policies like the Telework Reform Act, really crucial for improving job accessibility and stability. And we see so many of our clients who, are feds, but former military. We have a lot of military spouses as clients, and this just, really stands out. So recently, the Senate panel advanced this bill with a 9-2 vote, passing without much discussion, but Senators Rand Paul and Mitt Romney voted against it. Now, the bill is moving to the Senate for further consideration. On the flip side, we have the Back to Work Act introduced by Senators Mitt Romney and Joe Manchin. This bill aims to limit telework to 40% of work hours per pay period and restrict remote work except in specific cases. It requires annual reviews and reauthorization of telework agreements and mandates agencies to monitor and report employees' work output to Congress while teleworking. There's a lot of debate around this bill, and it's still up in the air. So lawmakers are negotiating, but the Senate panel hasn't reached a consensus yet. So what's next? The future of remote work for federal employees could go in a few directions. It could be full return to the office, hybrid models, or even permanent remote work for some roles. It really all depends on, these legislative outcomes, technology advancements, and employee and agency preferences. So be sure to stay in the loop about changes in remote work policies and be ready for different outcomes. And if you need financial guidance, don't hesitate to reach out to our team here at Serving Those Who Serve.
Excellent point. We're here to help. Well, Chelsea, I think that's all the time we have for today. And folks, we will be back next week to bring you the latest updates you need to know to make informed decisions about your career and financial well-being as a Fed.
Yes. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast on our YouTube channel, FedLife, so you never miss an episode. And please, please, please remember to share it with your friends and colleagues.
Absolutely. And for more information on the topics covered in today's show and more, check out our blog at blog.stwserve.com. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter, The Weekly Serving, to get all the latest news for feds sent straight to your inbox. You don't even need to go.
And for those who want to dive even deeper into learning about your federal benefits and financial planning for feds, we really encourage you to join us on one of our complimentary webinars. We have our very popular FEHB, Medicare, and TRICARE webinar on August 28th from 10:30 to 2:30, and our FERS webinar on September 4th from 11 to 2. Or if you prefer a one-on-one approach, feel free to reach out to our team directly for a financial planning consultation at askstws@stwserve.com.
We are standing by to help you. Well, everyone, thanks for listening to Fed15. I'm Dan Sipe.
And I'm Chelsea English.
And we will see you next week.